Real Men, Real Talk, our mental wellness initiative. We're doing some incredible work around the country with the opportunity to not only impact men's lives from a health and wellness perspective, but our mental wellness conversation and our mental wellness efforts are really taking the country by storm. We're having conversations all over the country with influential individuals who are passionate about the work that we're doing and the changing of lives of black men who are given permission to just talk. We're telling men all around the country that it's okay to talk. And today we get an opportunity to sit down with someone who is doing an incredible job in the community out here in California, Mr. Tremayne Anchrum, who is serving as our honorary chair for this year's African American Male Wellness 5K Walk and Run. JG and I have had the pleasure of sitting down with so many men, but JG, I'm excited about this conversation. How about you?
I'm excited because I think when you got young men having conversations about mental health, that makes it more powerful. And having this young brother with us to talk about how he has overcome some things, but and how he overcomes them every day. He was just having this conversation, and I was like, wow, what he just said was powerful. Having a person that you can just be real with, how important that is. And so I'm excited about hearing some of his stories. And so let's see. We always start this stuff off with self-disclosing some things about ourselves. And so I shared this with, we did a Real Men Real Talk event in Houston last night with Pac-Man Jones, a former football player. And I've been really needing to talk about this because it really impacted me. I went blind, and ever since I went blind, people have been saying to me, you should get a stick. You should get a stick. And I was like, I don't get no stick. Now, what I never told anybody was I didn't want to get a stick because if I got a stick, that would be me admitting that I was blind. And for some reason, I was waking up every day thinking, oh, this is the day I'm going to see. I can go back and tell people I didn't really need the stick. But so I've been listening to people, and I decided I was going to go get a stick because I want to be more independent. So you still have that independency. I'm blind. I'm still thinking I could be independent. And I ordered this stick, and a couple of people was like, "Oh my God, you finally got a stick!" And I used the stick. And after I used the stick, I kind of broke into some tears because it was the first time I realized I was blind. Uh, Now I know I was blind, but like I said, I kept thinking that I ain't gonna be blind long. And then I used the stick, and I got it. And I was like, I'm getting this stick to make everybody else happy, because really I didn't need the stick. I didn't know what I was gonna do with the stick anyway. I used it. It doesn't tell you like go left, go right, or go north, go south. But I realized that getting this stick was me having an opportunity to go to another level in my life and really believe that my blindness is not a result of me doing something evil or something like that. It is just something that happened in my life that the Creator allowed to happen. And so I would ask you, Tremaine, have you ever had any incidents in your life where you felt like that?
Yeah, I think just kind of going back to last year, I remember I got hurt. Somebody fell into my leg during a football game, and being a big, strong football player, obviously you're used to being independent. You're used to doing things on your own, being self-sufficient. That fuels into your feeling of being a man, being someone who is capable. I think when I had that physical injury and I had to be on a scooter and crutches for up to a month and a half, I had to really learn to depend on other people in so many different ways. And for me, that was tough. Being very self-sufficient from a very young age, and understanding that I have to be that man. I have to be the man, and I feel like being the man means you got to do it on your own. You got to figure out a way. My dad was really proud about that. My dad was a big influence on me, just saying like, "Hey, make a way, figure it out." We was having a conversation earlier about having tough situations that our older generation was just saying, "Hey, work your way through it, figure your way out, even if it doesn't seem like something that you can do. Work your way through it." So, any obstacle, especially this one, I wanted to self-sufficient my way through it. I wanted to hop to the car if I could. I wanted to make my own food on one leg, you know, show how tough I was. But I think that just showed how insecure I really was, and kind of coming to grips with being okay with asking for help, being okay with being vulnerable and saying, hey, like, can you guys help me with this? I need assistance. It brought me closer to being a man than kind of refusing that.
So that word vulnerable, I'm so glad that you just said that, because I was going to go there. Why is it that brothers struggle with being vulnerable and showing vulnerability? And, you know, for myself personally, and we were just talking about it, I personally struggle with being vulnerable and being in a space where I feel as though I may need help and asking for help, because being the oldest of four and being a preacher's kid and a preacher's grandkid, you know, a lot of pressure is put on individuals that have that type of, I would say, upbringing, right? Mm-hmm. And so you find yourself, just like to your point, trying to figure it all out, but there's just some things we just don't know. And so there's nothing wrong with a brother saying, hey, I need some help. I remember being on a flight, flying out to Houston earlier this year to go do a Real Men, Real Talk, to go and be in the midst of, you know, a few hundred men that I'm going to pour into. But I'm having a moment on this flight sitting next to JG, because that morning I was struggling with a work-related issue that was, I would say, putting my shortcomings on blast or on display. Yeah. And I'm trying to like come across as something, I got it all together, knowing full well I don't, and I got some areas I need to work on. But bro, I found myself trying to explain what I was dealing with, how this matter was like really triggering me, to the point where all I could do was cry. Bawling, grown man sitting on the flight, like snot running down my nose.
Like,
that was the most
kind of cry.
Powerful cry.
Thanks for the visual.
That I've had. He enjoys it, because he's like, he was sitting there quiet, like, okay, he's not talking, but I'm hearing him reacting. So he was like, you all right? And I'm like, I couldn't even tell him yes or no. I'm just bawling. But he said, well, why didn't you ever just say that? Why didn't you ever ask for help? And I told him, I said, it would have hurt me to even ask for help, because for me, I was internalizing as a sign of weakness, not knowing that on the other side of that maturity of asking for help is a lot of freedom. It's a lot of growth. And so now I'm able to tell brothers, don't be afraid to let others know, especially men that are in your life that are trying to help you. Go ahead and let them know. You was just sharing how you have someone in your life that y'all can keep it 100 with. So talk to us a little bit about like how having that individual in your life help you get through some of your tough times, because most men are walking around and they are not sharing what's going on inside of them because they don't want to come across as soft or weak or be vulnerable.
I mean, I can bounce that to JG and say, hey, how did you feel hearing him boo-hooing, and how did that make you feel as, you know, being a person in his life that he trusts? What was your initial reaction to hearing him?
Now we had you to here talk to you, not ask me questions.
But I'm curious. It might lead into my next point. So, as a person watching that, or just kind of being around that, like, what was your initial?
Well, I think that the context of this was I'd really been having this struggle with Kenny anyway, to get him to see some truth, and along that way, he just was not admitting it. So I just accepted that how he was telling me, no, that ain't true, that ain't me. And I kept saying, hey, you know, here's a part of your issue is, you know, you grew up in a household where you weren't allowed to tell nothing outside the house. And now you're in a space where somebody's telling your business about your performance on a billboard almost, and you got a problem with that. And you don't want to hear it. And so when I heard him, first of all, it was really kind of funny because I heard this sniffling, and I thought, well, maybe it's allergies. And I was like, don't ask. And then I was like,
right. It's allergies or weakness. I don't know.
Then I was like, what do I do? Do I hug him? Do I say it's going to be okay? And this is what I really felt. I really felt at that moment, this is why you got to go talk to brothers because they got to free themselves of those chains that guilt makes them hold on to, and they can't have a free life because they hold on to being something they don't have to be. And so I felt in myself like I've had that experience. I've had that kind of experience where you drop on your knees and you cry because you just find out yourself that you ain't all who you thought you was, or you didn't get to the place where you wanted to get to. And so yeah, at that moment I really felt I felt vulnerable that I was going to have to share something about myself to him. So then that kind of made me mad. Like, now I'm gonna have to cry too. So, what about you?
I when I have my friend or family, or when I turn to somebody that I really want to be vulnerable with, there's a moment of, is this okay? Am I in a space enough to where I can show weakness or show that this is really getting to me? Like, this is a real soft spot for me. And then I check if it's safe. Is this going to be someone who's going to judge me for what I'm going to say? Is this someone who's going to laugh at me for what it is? Or they're going to treat me different for this? And when I kind of go through that list and kind of confirm that, okay, this is a space where I'm like, I'm good. This is my guy. This is somebody I can be vulnerable with. I feel a weight lift. And when I communicate what's going on, how it makes me feel, why it makes me feel that way, there is a small moment of, oh man, like I just threw out my whole feelings out there. How's he gonna react? And he's gonna boo me. Is he gonna jump on me or whatever? But when I get back, compassion, when I get back empathy, when I get back, hey, I understand, or I don't understand, but keep talking, I feel safe. I feel like it's okay to be me, not to be this perfect man, not to be this alpha, not to be the man my family wants me to be, society wants me to be, or whoever. I can just be me for a second. And that point, I can breathe easy.
So when you talk about just being you or being me, that's one of the things that we have been trying to not push, but just open up that space for men to really ask themselves, who are you? And are you being your authentic self? Why do you think a lot of brothers struggle in that space where they gotta be something that they feel as though others, will accept instead of just being their true selves?
Man, you're always made to feel like yourself isn't good enough. You got to be more this. You got to be bigger that. You need to make more this. You need to do more that. There's always something that you're not doing. And I think as men, we feel like we have to be everything to everybody in any situation. In any situation that you're not feeling that need or, satisfying whoever or dominating this, you feel like, man, I'm less of a man. And I think in those spaces that, we see other men kind of doing that, we often compare ourselves and try to like one up each other or whatever it may be. And I think that's just not it. I think we need to be okay with not being in the spotlight as far as you have to be this alpha male. You have to be like the LeBron Jameses of the world, the Jay-Z's. Like, you can be yourself and dominate your space as best as you can and still be just enough a man as those superstars, as those role models, as those heroes that we put all these expectations on. And I think it's just being okay with being you, being the authentic version that you were made to be and working towards where you want to get to.
I made a commitment to myself to be my most authentic self. So tell me, when did you decide to be your most authentic self? I mean, you're a football player, people want your autograph, you're making good money, you live a lifestyle that people dream about. But when did you say to yourself, like, let me be my authentic self?
Man, when I started looking at everybody in these spaces, I kind of grew up with a lot of superstars. My dad was a superstar. I started growing up with a bunch of star athletes and actors and entertainers, and I kind of, was self-conscious a lot of the time. I didn't look like them. I didn't sound like them. I couldn't really live up to what they were doing, and I realized, like, I don't really need to. These people aren't perfect. These people got a bunch of flaws. They got a bunch of shortcomings, and I'm like, so do I. what am I stressing for trying to be somebody I'm not? And I think around high school, I just stopped giving a damn. I was just like, there is no way I'm going to stress myself to be somebody I'm not and be unhappy with it too. You know what I mean? Like sometimes we as men try to force our way into spaces we don't really need to be, or take charge of situations we don't need to, or do whatever. But I think we as men are okay where we're at. We don't need to be perfect. We don't need to be where everyone thinks we should be. I think that's why we often compare. It's all we often get, into a rat race with other men or whoever to satisfy our egos, because we're scared of how we might be perceived on the outside or how we think about ourselves on the inside. And I think in high school and going into college, I had to reassert myself, and even getting into the league, I had to refine myself again to say, like, hey, Tremayne, don't try to be like them. That's a facade. They're all just putting it out there just to, especially in the social media age, especially where everybody's stunting. I mean, you got Alexander McQueen. Like, you're like, man, I need to step my game up. He came hard. I need to come hard. Like, hey, like, I'm going to do me, and I'm going to do it the best way I can, and that's good enough. I can lay my head on my pillow at night knowing I did it.
And see, right there is where I think a lot of brothers can benefit from having less stress, and they can have more peace by really activating the inner man of just being okay with who you are, and understanding that, you know what, it's me versus me, and if I can't observe what's going on in other individuals' lives, or be on social media and be exposed to what levels other individuals might be without it really, impacting me negatively, then maybe I need to put some parameters in place on what I'm exposing myself to. Because what you're doing just might be some dope stuff. And you're well on your way to getting to that next level, or getting to that mountaintop. But I can't even just say you. I know I'm guilty of it. I'm guilty of comparing, and more importantly, comparing myself to some standards that sometimes they're just unrealistic, and they're out of reach. And I had to get to a place where I said to myself, nah, Kenny, like, you're going to drive yourself into an early grave. Your high blood pressure could be directly connected to the stress you put on your life with some things that are not really that important, right? And you're on your way. You're doing the work, Kenny. So like, just keep being consistent, but more importantly, be your true self. So we share with brothers all the time, man. That comparison stuff got to go. If you want to compare anything or compare yourself to anyone, compare yourself to yesterday's version of yourself. And ask yourself, what could I do better today than I did yesterday? And just keep doing that. But you don't have to compare yourself to the next man. No. Not one bit. No. JG, what you think about that whole comparison
I would ask
thing,
him, have you ever thought about committing suicide? Like you, every time you say you got a little sound, you go like, I don't know who to answer that one.
I've had some thoughts of why. I've had some thoughts of, hopelessness for sure.
And how old are you?
I'm 25.
So the highest suicide rate is for black men, 18 and 24. And so we don't never really kind of talk about that with our boys or ourselves or older black men. And so I'm asking you that question because I want black men out there to know that you're not the only person that ever thought about it. But what did you do about it when you thought about it?
Man, I went back and I leaned on those people that care about me the most. Those people I felt like in my life, would go the mile for me, would do whatever it took to make sure they were there for me. And I just talked to them, and I got how I felt off my chest. I kind of got really bare, and and asked them, am I tripping, or is this and that? And I always got great feedback, because it was things that, were still in my control. First and foremost, they got to understand that, hey, you are in control of your life, and things are fleeting, whether it be good or bad. Like, that is how life kind of goes. And I think that kind of being bare, kind of being vulnerable and talking and, you know, reasserting that, hey, you're in control of your life. Things get better if you do the work and if you be honest with yourself. I think sometimes we aren't all the way honest with ourselves the way we should be, and I think that's why having people in your corner is important to get through those tough moments and to get you through, you know, the good ones. When you're smelling your own, you know what I mean, self, and you're feeling like, oh, I'm the man. I think you kind of need people to knock you down a few, you know, steps, and then some people also need to pick you up a few steps. And I think it's kind of a balancing act that, you know, I'm grateful to have people I can do that with.
I tell you what, man, being able to have someone, JG and I, we talk about it all the time with different individuals that we cross paths with, man, how important it is to really just have somebody. And if you don't have somebody, I highly encourage you to identify someone, because being able to just have some other person provide some feedback, because there's only so much that we're actually going to say to ourselves. There's only so much that we're going to actually want to even discuss, right? So when you have an opportunity to have someone like that, you got to take advantage of it. You got to take advantage of the opportunity to learn things about yourself that you don't want to hear. JG keeps it 100 with me, and I appreciate that because I've made a commitment to myself to being the best version of myself, but I have to also be mature enough to understand that there's some things that I'm going to hear and learn about myself through that conversation that it's just the real. And sometimes there's no need for any sugarcoating. It's like I'm gonna give it to you straight up and down. And that's why Real Men Real Talk for us is so important, because it really gives permission for men to go there and be 100, be straight up. And that way there's no gray.
Yeah.
There's no gray. You walk away from that conversation, you clearly understand, here's where I am, here's my truth, but here's what I'm willing to do about what was just unveiled or what was just disclosed in this conversation.
Facts.
So, you know, JG, I got something I wanted to throw out there for us. You know, this whole thing, and Tremayne kind of touched on it with identity crisis, man. Like, you know, you're still playing right now, but then there's a lot of guys that they reach a point because you can't drive this vehicle forever. This vehicle has an expiration date. And one thing that we have heard around the country, man, there's a lot of former athletes, including myself at one point, where we struggle with the new person, with what was next. Have you given any thought to your next chapter or to what life after sports look like for you?
Yeah, no doubt. I've definitely leaned more into, you know, philanthropy. I've leaned more into you know, using some of my connections and my interests as far as in the business realm, as far as with being in the schools, as, you know, kind of springboarding me to my next step and fulfilling that, you know, my dream and my goals of helping people, being a positive influence, creating bridges and networks that people can benefit off of. Those are definitely all parts of my identity. And for a long time, I think I was afraid to commit to the football, you know, when I was younger, because I was like, I don't want to lose who I am. But then, you know, growing up and you kind of doing both, you're like, this is who I am. And like all these aspects that made me a great player, make me a great student or whatever, all transition into everything else.
And then you got that first check, you was like, yep, this is who I am.
Cut gray up. I was like, there's no gray. I know who I am. I know who I can be. Let's keep this rolling. But no, but I do love what I do. So it's always easier to get paid to, you know, get paid to do what you love.
So talk about a little bit about the philanthropic side of it then, man. Like that seems to be something that when we hear, when your name is mentioned, yes, football is one of the things that they touch on, but they also talk about the fact that you are involved in the community. That seems to be like a passion of yours. So talk to us a little bit about, like, you know, where this all came from and why are you so passionate about being, you know, philanthropist and being all about the community.
Yeah, for sure. My family has been doing this for a long time.
Who is your dad? You said he was famous. I wanted to know who he was.
My dad, he's famous out here, and he's famous in Colorado. He was, you know, he's Mr. Basketball in Colorado for some years. He was a basketball player for Southern Cal for a while in the 90s, and he was a pretty big star. So, having to live up to that was, whew, talk about mental health. That was tough. But no, he came
I
from a
think you
family
should stay
that
right
did that.
there because that's one thing that we don't talk about enough too, trying to live up to your parents. Your parents have expectations. Every my family got a degree, a master's degree, they're this, they're that. And I'm like, I don't have none of that. And so with living up to your parents, how did that feel trying to live up to them? And when did you break away from like, hey, I'm just going to be me?
Man, that's tough. I felt like I had to be everything they wanted me to be. Tremayne's the straight A student all the time. He's the perfect human being. He's gonna be a superstar like his dad, and this, that, and the third. And you kind of again internalize all these things because you hear them all the time, and you're like, I guess I got to be the man. I gotta do this. I have to do that. This is what I have to do. And I think around middle school, I was pretty unhappy. I knew that this is not what I wanted to do, but I knew like I had this sense of responsibility, a sense of duty that everyone else presses on you, so you feel like you have to uphold, and it's an obligation at that point. And you just woke up trying to fulfill everyone else's obligation of you, and you were like, man, this is not it. And I think my freshman year in high school, I played like one more year of basketball. And I love basketball, but I was playing for the wrong reasons. I was like, this isn't me. I'm not, who my family thinks I am. I'm not this person. And I'm not a terrible person, but I'm not this perfect kid that they always think. I got problems. I got flaws. I got all these issues that I don't get to say out loud because I'm scared that I'm not going to live up to their expectations. I'm not going to be the man they think I am. And that's kind of terrifying, especially as a kid. I mean, you don't really know no better. I mean, sometimes as an adult, you're like scared to be raw because you're like, I don't think they're going to like me because I'm not the person they think I am. But I think that just being comfortable in like, you are who you are.
Yeah.
It ain't gonna change, bruh. You are who you are back then. You obviously work on traits to get better, but getting a true view of who you are, good, bad, or ugly, wherever you are, is a great foundation to see and understand, all right, this is the building we're building. There's some mold here, there's a chipped brick, there's a bad foundation there. Let's get a real view of who you are so you can build on top of it, not, some fake facade of who everybody thinks you are. Be an authentic you, share that, be comfortable and just confident in that, and build on top of that. When I got confident in who I was and kind of sharing it with my dad and my family, like, I don't really like this, I'm not really good at that, that's when my relationship started to get better. And that's when I started blooming into who I want to be, and that's when the journey really started for me.
But you had the conversation, and I think that's key.
Ooh, it was hard.
And it's difficult. It's difficult to sit down and face loved ones and face those who have such an impact on your life. And when it comes to that inner circle, when you're talking, mom and dad, it's difficult to really have that mature conversation. But there's so much liberation that, and there's so much weight that is taken off of your shoulders when you're able to have that real conversation. And being the oldest of four and trying my best to be that model for my siblings and living up to the expectations of my parents, I've had to have those conversations with them about certain things and trying to make it clear that I have my own life to live too. And there's some things that you're going to do and you did that you felt that was best for you, and I have to do the same for me and for my family. And we got to love each other and we got to respect each other. But we also have to be mature enough to understand that if that conversation doesn't go as planned, you got to still put yourself first. And you still got to say to yourself, you know what? I did what I needed to do by addressing it, bringing it to the forefront, but I got to protect my peace right now and put me first. We talked with Pac-Man Jones and a group of guys in Houston, and we were talking about you got to put your mask on first, man. We fly a lot. You don't fly without them telling you what. When in the event of an emergency, you got to put your mask on first, right? Because oftentimes we try to start helping other people, not knowing that we're suffocating every single day because we're not giving ourselves what's necessary for us to continue being the best versions of ourselves. So, as we continue to have these conversations about real men, real talk, and we're giving men the permission to talk therapy is really changing the game. It's really making an impact. And
if you blow one more time,
Hey,
You be making me like, wow.
Like, y'all
hitting all the points. I'm like, wow.
Well, I want to say this as we kind of wrap this up.
Yes, sir.
You said something really powerful. And I was like, you know what? I remember when I was trying to be my most authentic self. And you live your life sometimes trying to please other people.
Yeah.
And sometimes you be wishing them people died so you could be your authentic self. You be like, why don't these people die so I can just be me? And so I want people to know, strive very hard to find out who you are. Because when I listen to you at 25 years old, your conversation is powerful.
It is.
And it sounds like you found a space in your life where you have decided this is who I am, like me or dislike me, this is who I am, and it sets you free. And what we want brothers to know, black men, to know it's okay to talk, because when you talk, you get free. And so I just wanted to say thank you for being open and vulnerable enough and keep blowing that and going like, whew. It's almost like you're going like, don't ask the next question. So I just want to say thank you for that, Kenny.
Yeah. So there you have it, man. Tremayne, we can't thank you enough on behalf of the entire organization, the African American Male Wellness Agency. We're the health and wellness arm of the National Center for Urban Solutions. And we pride ourselves on holistically supporting African American men and their families in some critical spaces. And this space, mental wellness, is one that we're excited about, where we get to sit down and have real conversation like this and let brothers know it's okay to talk. But we're excited about 2024, man, because we're going to take some masks off in 24, and we're going to be our true selves. And we're looking to circle back with you and talk to you a little bit more about how you can help us get that message out, not just here in California, but all across this country, to encourage brothers to live their authentic selves, man. You got us?
Hey, I'm with it.
Let's do it. JG.
Hey, thanks, bro.
Make it happen,
Appreciate
man. Appreciate you, bro.
Appreciate
Yes,
y'all.
sir.
All right, thanks.
All right, there you have it.
It's a wrap.
Yes, sir.